All right, welcome back, everyone. This is episode 11 of the Weekly Ward. Myself, Dan Ward. Next to me, as always, the Manus Rider himself, Mr. K. Fed, or K. Jones. What's going on, everyone? Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of things going on, other than Hulk Hogan, since he's great. And we need the American flag guitar, too. Yes, we definitely need that. So we're going to be going over some stuff that happened this last weekend. We had a lot of events happen. We had the GP Houston, which I was at. And we also had
SCG Philly, which I was at.
And how'd you do?
6-2-1. The day 2 cut was 6-1-2, and that's blamed entirely on the Miracles and Legacy in general, just being like a lot of draws. So yeah, so we just missed. I played a really interesting Bant deck. It was good, but not optimal. Knight of the Reliquary was really good against Eldrazi, which is kind of what I was going for. But the mana was a little inconsistent, and I lost. I drew with a Wasteland deck and lost to another Wasteland deck. So that's just Legacy is kind of just it's rough like that. But are we gonna go over?
Yeah, we'll go into Legacy. I was at Houston, but we'll go over that first. So here we go. We got the Legacy. I'm not much of a Legacy player. I used to play Sneak and Show, and now that Wizards has kind of said we're gonna give you 1 or 2 GPs a year, it's not really my thing. Whereas,
sure.
Obviously you're Star City. You're
well, we get one
actually,
season too.
Yeah, I guess they took away the invitationals now.
Yeah, there's
So
one
it's
legacy.
just-
There's one legacy a season, and then there's if you don't day 2 the Open, you can play a Legacy Classic every weekend. And a few people who have been working up the leaderboard have been just crushing those things because they're super low attended because Legacy's not really an open format anymore, so it ends up just being like a 7-round tournament. Like there are people cashing at 3-4.
And if you're really good with one certain deck, like Caleb Scherer with
Joel
Storm,
Lissette.
and Joel Lissette with Miracles, you definitely want to be you want to be playing those classics.
There's been 6 opens. I think Joel Lissette has won 2 or 3 of the classics, which is just crazy.
All right, so doing a quick rundown here, we got Grixis Delva. Congratulations, Noah Walker, two-time champ now.
Massachusetts native, not too far away from us over there.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I talk with him at almost every single tournament. We got Jerry T with Colorless Eldrazi. Also, here we go, Eldrazi, every single format. Tom Ross, no surprise, he's playing Infect. Then we also have Grixis Delver, we have Miracles, Lands, Blue-Red Delver, and Colorless Eldrazi again. So we got the 2-3 Delver decks and 2 Eldrazi decks. The other ones we have staples. We have the one Infect, the Miracles, and Lands. So kind of diverse, kind of like normal Legacy. You'll have decks like Reanimator, Sneak and Show sometimes pop in there. Other decks like Storm, these are decks that you're going to see, let's say, if there's 3 tournaments, you're going to see those sometimes in the top 8. What stands out to you?
Well, the Eldrazi decks obviously, are interesting because this previously wasn't a thing in Legacy.
Let's highlight Jerry T's just to go over it a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry has 1 Warping Whale, 3 Dismembers, 4 Thorns, 4 Chalices, and 2 Mox Diamonds as his non-creature spells, and then a 20 set of the Eldrazi that everybody plays, and 1 Endbringer. Which, the Matter Reshapers are a little interesting to me, because Legacy is defined, or Swords to Plowshares is a format-defining card, so it feels a little weird to me, but Lightning Bolt's also a format-defining card, and Matter Reshaper is good against it. But, to go a little bit farther into that, I don't actually think you need cards in your deck that are good against Lightning Bolt because your deck is stacked against Lightning Bolt heavily with, Thorn, Chalice, and just, 4/4s and 5/5s.
Yeah, you're not really worried about them killing your Mimic. If they kill your Mimic in response to you playing Thought-Knot Seer, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your creatures, Matter Reshaper doesn't care.
It makes your decision with Thought-Knot Seer even easier or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I just don't know if Matter Reshaper is good. It could be a case of there really isn't anything else in the slot. I've seen a few Lodestone Golems in that slot, and I think that's really interesting.
Sure.
Like a mud type hybrid deck.
A big fatty that can come out early that actually just disrupts a lot of these 1 mana spell decks. Which to me, looking at this list, one of the decks I was really concerned about that could come up in Legacy that could beat this deck is Burn. But with running 4 Chalice and 4 Thorn, that really sums up your matchup. Burn will never beat this deck. Yeah, well, with that, but without those, I think they have a shot. Because with playing Ancient Tombs, you're going to be taking some early damage.
When most of your deck costs upwards of like 4 and 5 mana. Like when your high impact spells are expensive, sure. Decks that go under you will go under you effectively. Like I think that elves could be good against this deck.
Sure. And the other thing with burn is that 25 out of 25 lands here all get hit by Price of Progress.
Yep, every
which
single one of them.
is big game for these Delver decks moving forward. Like, if this is a problem, yes, Thorn's a pain in the butt, and Chalice on 1 is going to be tough. But, like, I remember the blue-red list that I think Gerard Fabiano ran last season.
The blue-red Delver deck?
The blue-red Delver deck. He had, like, 2 Price of Progresses, I think, in the sideboard.
I mean,
they were the main of the sideboard. But
did that deck top 8?
He did top 8.
No, I mean, this tournament. Did a blue-red Delver deck? Yeah,
it did. Let's check
right?
it out. Let's check it out.
Let's go to that deck.
Ely, good friend, and Harlan on there, too. So, Smash the Smithereens. Did we see any in here?
We got no prices.
We don't. But that's something if this matchup is tough for Colorless Eldrazi, which if you're saying pretty much Lightning Bolt's going to be tough.
No, I don't think I don't think Lightning Bolt is good against them.
Well, that's what I mean. If Lightning Bolt's not good against them, especially with running Chalices, then they may want to, I don't think they can cut Lightning Bolt, but they can utilize their sideboard better to maybe bring in some Price of Progresses.
It's also like you really just have such a critical mass of things that are bad against Chalice that, like, the games when they get a Chalice are the games that you're, like, not going to win. So, like, you really just need to seek to beat Chalice. So whether that's with Forces, Dazes, maybe a Spell Pierce or a Spell Snare, or, like, we got Smash in the sideboard, that type of thing, that's how you're going to beat Chalice, so that then your Lightning Bolts are fine.
Yeah.
Because if you can cast them...
Yeah, they're great.
They're great. Yeah, they're great because that's what you need to leverage your turn 1 Delver or whatever. The True Name Nemesis in there is pretty good against the Eldrazi Menace. Young Pyromancer is actually good because with Young Pyromancer, once you, even if they do have a Chalice on 1, you can just cast your spells into the Chalice to fuel your Delve for, well, in this case, it would just be for Set Adrift, which is kind of random. But in the Grixis deck, you could fuel your Delve for Gurmag Angler and just generate tokens so that you have ways to accrue value even underneath the Chalice.
Okay.
Which is something I'm sure they thought about when they built this deck. Now, this is really interesting to me.
3 probes?
Yeah, it's almost like when you build a deck in Legacy that contains 4 Delver of Secrets and 4 Young Pyromancer, the immediate next thing you do is put 4 Dazes, 4 Ponders, 4 Brainstorms, and 4 Gitaxian Probes in the deck almost immediately. It's like guaranteed that those cards are in the deck. It's just like, and Ely is one of the most successful Legacy players from the Northeast. He also used to have like the 2nd highest limited rating in the world. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, he is. He's really good.
Which is really interesting. But yeah, and so there's a definitive reason why there's only 3 probes in his deck, and it really interests me. I didn't get a chance to ask him about it, but I like it. And 2 basic islands is great here. Yeah, not much more to say about this one. We really don't want to lose to Death and Taxes. 2 Sulfur Elementals.
Yeah, definitely not. Get them.
1 Set Adrift. What do you think you Set Adrift?
So I think he's set adrift a couple things. I think you can set adrift. Yeah, I was going to say Chalice, you could set adrift. You could set up a really big turn if they have like Amethyst in play and they don't have Chalice at the end of the turn. The fact that it's a sorcery, I guess, like you said, it has to be all in one turn. If it was an instant, that card would be awesome.
You can delve, and with any other delve spell, just as you can with this one, you can delve additional cards to mitigate the effect of Thalia or Thorn of Amethyst.
Okay.
So, like, this still only costs 1 most of the time underneath Thorn or Thalia.
Sure.
Which is cool. Because it doesn't get Chalice and it still costs 1, which makes the rest of
I think, like you said, the reason why he's got one of this is because it allows him a lot of utility because he's not running the Grixis version, so he doesn't have, like, the Gurmag Anglers or whatever. Some of them I haven't seen if they're starting to run, like, 1 Murderous Cut or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So you don't have the black. This is almost like a 1 blue spell that has that effect, which I think is very good for 1 blue.
Yeah, it's like a Wipe Away or a Cryptic Command or something in a modern deck.
And it deals with everything, just not creatures, just every non-land permanent. So
it's interesting for sure. I like it. I think it's probably right.
Okay. We alluded to Jerry's. Let's look on Harlan's. I know a big friend of yours, good acquaintance of mine.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see what his difference was. Well, I see Trinisphere right away. I see 2, the Jeets. He's ready to fight.
Yeah, so and he's got more Warping Whales too, which I like because the reason why you don't see Warping Whales in the modern deck is because the modern deck only gives you fast mana for Eldrazi creature spells And as a result, Warping Wail actually costs 2 of your, it would cost a temple and another land or whatever. So it's the opportunity cost is much heavier.
Okay.
For the modern deck. This, you have, a full 8 lands that tap for 2 colorless mana. That we got 4 cities and 4 tombs,
so
right?
the ancients
or 3 cities. Well,
the ancients and the tombs. You could just turn 1, kill a Delver.
Yeah, this it does what you want it to do on curve. Like, this is too slow for modern as a 2 mana spell, but as effectively a turn 1 spell in Legacy, it's very much on par with what you need to be able to do in the format. It's good against it's good against Delver. It's good against you can keep parity with Burn until you get your your slower effects to slow them down, and then you can catch up and your card quality will eventually take over. And here, as you notice, the Matter Reshapers have been eschewed in favor of what looks like
Phyrexian Metamorph, and he's playing the additional Jeets.
He's playing 4 Revokers too.
Oh wow, he's just not wanting to lose. It seems a lot of people don't want to lose a Death and Taxes.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly think this is it could be a mirror thing.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. It also could be for elves because you could have envisioned or lands. Yeah, that too.
Okay.
Lands is another one. See, there's no thorns here, so he went with Revokers over thorns and Metamorphs and more Warping Wails.
Seems like he's kind of rolling the dice in favor of
Matter Reshapers.
Of not having as much game against Storm. Obviously, Trinisphere and Chalice are awesome. But,
and so is Warping Wail.
Yeah, Warping Wail's fine, I guess. But they're not, I don't know. I still would like to see some Thorns in there. I think with having as many Soul Lands as you do, being able to, this deck, play that on turn 1 is just so good. And in fact, sometimes better than Chalice.
His deck also looks better against Delver decks.
Okay.
Than Jerry's. With the full 3 Warping Wails and 2 GTAs. And Dismember, so there's more interaction. And also Metamorph, which you can just copy. You can copy a Delver in a pinch.
Yeah, so not to jump to Modern here, but just looking at this card, Warping Wail, for instance, Harlan's playing 3 of it. I think this is actually a really good card this weekend for Detroit, because a lot of people are trying to fight Eldrazi's on the back of Damnation and Wrath of Gods. Obviously it doesn't work versus Supreme Verdict, but a lot of the sorcery hate, I think this is a very good option. And in fact, I think...
For an Eldrazi deck.
Yeah, for an Eldrazi deck versus Wrath of Gods versus Damnation. And in fact, even Affinity. Because they have to deal with Creeping Corrosions.
This is cool in Affinity. I do think this is cool in Affinity. In Eldrazi, I think... I would actually argue that both decks are better suited to just play Stubborn Denial.
Okay. That's maybe true. See, I'm on the ropes with Stubborn Denial. Because there's times when it's very good. But there's times when you have to basically show your opponent you have it.
Well, it's super easy to telegraph, but so is this. Think about what you're leaving untapped here. In the blue-white Eldrazi deck, which I've been playing a lot with recently, I think that if you leave up 1 Hallowed Fountain, the immediate jump in most of your opponent's mind is that you're representing Path or Dismember.
Okay.
And now, you can leave up Stubborn Denial while simultaneously representing Path or Dismember, which is good, provided that both of those things would actually be relevant in the matchup.
Sure.
And, to leave up this, you would have to leave up 2 mana, one of which might be Temple. Okay. Now, this is you can get away with it when you have a Displacer untapped, but I'm not even sure that I'd rather do this than just displace something.
See, I'm going a little deeper, and depending on what version, like you said, of Eldrazi you're playing, I'm thinking of the fact that you can actually have the Scion tokens between the Drowners and the Eldrazi Sky Spawners.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to just play that, have 1 mana up, and now they're thinking you have Dismember, they're thinking you have Path, they're thinking you have Stubborn Denial, and now you have that. So I'm just thinking of the flexibility, the utility out of the sideboard, and it's specifically just to hate those few cards.
Your deck is fairly mana hungry, so there are situations that arise where it's awkward to leave up colored mana throughout the course of the game, and I think that this could mitigate that a little bit.
Okay.
But I still think that I'd probably, if I had blue mana in my Eldrazi deck, I'd probably go with Stubborn Denial. But I do think that this would be great for the red-green deck.
Gotcha.
The red-green deck also has Talisman of Impulse, which makes this a lot easier to cast.
Okay.
As well as something else in the same turn. You can cast a Thought-Knot Seer on your turn 3.
Okay.
And also cast, I think you can also cast Chalice. Yeah, you could do, land, and then Thought-Knot Seer off of Temple with and then leave up Warping Wail. You could do that in the red-green deck. or something like that.
All right, what's going on, JD? We see you. We got a comment. You liked your article. By the way, for those of you that didn't know, Kevin did put an article out basically interviewing Dylan Donegan, one of the better Grixis Delver players.
Great Grixis Delver player. We actually played some games for fun, Dylan and I, in Philly, and he crushed me every time.
So you can check that out on the webpage. We have that on our articles link. All right, so let's get back to here. Do we want to talk about anything else? Let's see. We talked about Delver. Infect, it's kind of the same old, same old. I'll click on it real quick.
Like.
So the creatures, same as always. Let's see if he mixed up the spells a little bit. One crop rotation. Is he running the one card I'm always looking for is the Charm. Sometimes
no Piracy Charm?
Yeah, he didn't play it this
No,
weekend.
Piracy Charm is for Peacekeeper. Is one of the things that he's the most afraid of. And Piracy Charm is also good against like mid-range blue decks that have blockers, which I didn't expect a lot of, and he also, I assume, did not expect a lot of. I didn't expect a lot of Stoneblade decks. I didn't expect a lot of
his deck is so
Shardless Bug type decks.
His deck is so crazy in the sense that he has so many different numbers going on, and in addition, his sideboard has got even more of that. Like he's got the longest list of cards basically because he only has
falls off the page.
Yeah, he only has Submerge as a 2 of, and everything else is either a 1 of or it's an additional copy to something he has in the main deck.
Yeah, like you can tell that Tom's just been playing this deck forever because it's just like a perfect storm. It's just like the most ridiculous assortment of cards, and if you just pick this up and you're like, oh, that doesn't look good, I'll just change 3 cards, you'll just never ever win.
Yeah, and
because it's like a 75 card deck that is built with his like crazy approach to the deck and to Magic in general, like in mind.
It's kind of crazy too because I think if Infect wasn't a deck and you just like showed someone this deck list, they'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing with this? You're playing like all these random 1-ofs, like
you just like crazy. Come from the future and you're like, oh, this is what top 8 of the Legacy opened in 2016, and the 2012 like Legacy Masters are just like, this is not real. Like, get this out. Like, go back into your time capsule.
The card that I always like in this deck as the 1-of is the Sylvan Library, and I just think it's just so like appropriate to have a card that just takes your life.
Yeah.
Just to draw. It's just not fair.
It's like. Well,
it's like,
oh yeah, because like they're not taxing your life total at all, so like you just can take a bunch of life.
Yeah, and then you're just gonna kill them. So you're like turn 1.
No, but like they are taxing your life total.
It depends what deck.
You have.
Yeah.
You're not taxing their life total.
Yeah.
It's
that's what I mean. It's ironic.
It's funny.
But you're still like let's say your turn 1 is like Glistener for Noble Hierarch, and then you turn to Sylvan Library and draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
And just like, how do you not win on turn 4
It's funny
with
in
this
the
deck?
mirror, if your opponent like invigorates, you just draw 3 cards off library next turn. Like, I don't know. I think that this is just like, it's probably pretty good. It's Tom Ross deck. It's good for Tom Ross. You can see that there's some things that change. He has a Stifle that climbs in and out of his deck as a 1-of.
Okay.
I see a few less vines than he normally has.
The 1 Ponder, just in case.
Yeah, like he actually has way more interaction than normal and way less like just raw pump effects than normal.
His deck with a Resolve Chalice for 1, it's pretty tough to beat.
Well, that's why he has so much more interaction.
Yeah.
He goes up on Dazes. He goes up on Spell Pierces. I guess he shaved 1 Force, which doesn't exactly make sense, but I think that's because he added a few more green cards in the Zenith and maybe the library. I'm not sure if the library was always a main deck staple, but the library was a sideboard staple at least. That's for sure.
All
but yeah, we can go to
so blue-red, we saw that. We saw Eldrazi. Let's take a look at the lands just really quickly.
Oh, this is Dave Long's deck. A few of my friends talked about this deck this weekend. This is a lands deck with Molten Vortex.
Okay. Now, explain this card for those of you that have not been playing Legacy.
Okay.
Or because it's kind of a new card and it's similar to a card that's Seismic Assault. But go ahead.
For those of you who have not been playing Magic Origins sealed deck
or just not been playing Magic, this card as soon as it came out and it was on the spoiler, everyone forgot about it. It hasn't been played in Standard.
Whoa, look at this! And then it never saw play. I saw one or two like mono red sideboards with this in their deck in Standard. But anyway, this is This Molten Vortex is basically just a different version of Seismic Assault. And here we see Vortex just being used as a way to manage the board, kill some Delvers, and also kill their opponent through I guess something like Molten Vortex, like if you get it under a counterbalance, allows you to like beat Miracles to a degree. You can just draw a land and 2 them every single turn. Sure. And a lot of times Miracles will have struggle to find a clock to kill you in that time. But yes, this is David Long is a DC area Legacy player. Plays lands almost exclusively for the past few years. He actually knocked me out of a top 8 last year in Worcester. He drew as one of Choke against my Stoneblade deck.
Oh, I was watching that.
Yeah, you were watching that match for sure.
Yeah, that's who that was.
Yeah,
okay.
that guy. He's great.
Yeah, that was kind of unfortunate. I thought you had that game wrapped up with a bow, and then he drew that Choke, and it was like weird because like you put him in like such a bad spot because you resolve Rest in Peace, and then he followed back with Choke, and you're just like,
it's like hard enough for me to ever beat lands with Stoneblade.
Yeah.
And I just had like
the perfect hand to beat it.
Rest in Peace, Meddling Mage, and like a Jace to kill him with, and he just choked me and I died. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, like everything aligned, and I still couldn't get there. Yeah. But yeah, this is a few other Baltimore DC area guys played this deck this weekend.
Okay.
And I mean, it's an interesting take on lands.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they have a few more reasons for playing Vortex, but I'm not very very well versed in how this deck works specifically, so I don't know all those reasons.
Okay.
But the main deck decays that you can see are also interesting, most likely to avoid getting chaliced, I suppose.
Yeah. Thanks again, JD. No worry. I appreciate the love. And Eddie, no problem, man. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I'm glad that you're back in and watching us do our thing here. Eddie is a guy that I met in Vancouver. He really enjoys our stream and what we do. And so I got to talk with him for a little while. It was really nice.
Awesome.
To meet him.
Yeah, it's always well, thanks a lot, Eddie. And it's also always really rewarding to do that because we do a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
You go to GPs and I go to Opens mainly.
Yeah.
But regardless, we still do a lot of traveling, and it does take its toll on both your personal life outside of Magic and your and just your psyche. It just can be draining. It can wear you down and stuff. So
and like there's times like it really, at least to me, and I know to you, it's really important to hear the feedback and hear like, hey, we appreciate it, because that makes us want to like get up every day and do this.
Every time you sign a playmat or like just shake a hand, or a few times I've had like a father come up to me with his kids and say that like they watched like as a family, and I'm like, dude, that just like makes it feel like it's all worth it. That's just like absurd.
No, definitely.
It's great.
It really does.
But so if you guys appreciate what we do, keep on telling us. Thanks a lot. Yeah. We want to keep on doing it as long as possible.
And if you want to save money, come to Kerwin's Game Store and put in code Dan Ward or Kevin Jones, and you'll get 10% off. Yep. Back to the show.
Anyway.
All right.
Enough of that sappy stuff.
All right. So we're done with Legacy, unless there's something else you want to talk about. Because I'll race Legacy to get rid of it. Quick.
I don't really want to talk much about Legacy anymore either. Rich Cali is from New Paltz, which is about 40 minutes away from where we are. And he top-8'd with Miracles, so good for him.
Okay.
Guy from the Hudson Valley doing well. Bravo. Congrats to my buddy Harlan.
Yeah, a lot of our friends here, a lot of guys Harlan, Ely, Jerry, and Noah.
Tom Ross.
You know Tom better than I do. I've, played, next to him in shoulder. He seems like a fine dude. Mm-hmm. You can speak more of that.
Tom's great. He's a man of few words, but he usually
very
says
quiet.
Something very interesting when he does open his mouth, so there's that.
Okay.
Do you want to check the first batch just outside the top 8 real quick?
Sure, we can take a look, see how many Eldrazi decks there are. 1, 2. Okay.
Brad Carpenter was playing Harlan's deck. These guys were my roommates this weekend. Okay. And they tried to convince me to play this deck, and I was like, no, I think I want to play like Maverick with Force of Will. And like, I don't know. You can't go back now, but we see Joe Lissette again. We see Zach Koch, who always plays Infect. He was in that Worcester top 8 that I lost to Dave Long as well. We see Bistecki, the Invitational Champion, Germ Token, Grixis Delver, Elves, Andrew Jessup, actually the guy who knocked me out of the tournament, beat me in the last round. Congrats to him on just missing. Oh, can we look at this one, please?
Painter? One of my good buddies plays this deck a lot, and he does very well with it, so it's always interesting to see a different version. But go ahead.
Well, I think that this deck is great because we've got 4 Painter Servant as the focal point of the deck, and this
this is in the deck no matter what.
Well, it's just like nice Ayahugan or Eldrazi Temple.
Oh yeah.
It's just I'll make all your Reality Smashers blue.
And if
whatever.
life wasn't bad enough, 4 Blood Moon.
Yeah, 4 Blood Moon and 3 Magus of the Moon. This is really like the turn 1 Blood Moon deck. You see, there's another turn 1 Blood Moon deck that plays like a stacks deck. It plays like Rakdos Pit Dragon and like the werewolf, the 1/5 werewolf that flips into a 5/5 from Innistrad. Conware Watchkeep, I think is the name of it.
Yep.
There's that deck, and I actually played against that deck round 1 this past weekend. But I would prefer this deck to that deck, actually, because I think that this deck just has a surprisingly high amount of interaction for what seems like a mono red combo deck.
Okay.
It plays a lot like a blue deck. I've played this deck before. I always enjoyed it. It was one of my choices for the Players' Championship that I ended up going with Merfolk. But I think this deck is great.
This is kind of funny because I don't know if Ely knows Benjamin Hatch, but it looks like he knew to put that Set Adrift in because of Ensnaring Bridge. That seems insane.
Well, Ely knows Ensnaring Bridge is a thing, for sure. It's actually a thing from Burn as well as Painter.
Correct.
Like, it's how Burn beats, how Legacy Burn beats Sneak and Show.
Yeah.
Specifically Sneak and Show.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like Jund, that too.
Which is traditionally a just awful match for them.
Yeah, you'd think that, like, Ensnaring Bridge isn't very good for Burn against Sneak and Show because they just have a bunch of Force of Wills and Spell Pierces and stuff. But, like, whenever you resolve Show and Tell, they just put an Ensnaring Bridge and you lose.
Yeah.
So, like...
Well, you got to play around it, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That's when the probes really pay back and your Shattering Sprees, yada, yada, yada. But,
this is, like, funny because this deck has, like, the most ridiculously awkward matchup against Sneak and Show because they can't actually win with their Plan A combo because you have Emrakul in your deck, so you can't ever get decked. But they also have, like, 7 main deck Red Blasts and can just, like, burn you out with Jaya. It's just, like, the weirdest matchup ever where they both kind of just look at each other.
Yeah, you kind of just want to be able to sneak attack, set that plan up. And if they have an Ensnaring Bridge, it's going to be tough to do that.
Mm-hmm. And Benjamin Hatch is a Massachusetts, I believe, a New England area guy. There's actually, funny enough, there's actually 2 Benjamin Hatches from Massachusetts, and they both play competitive Magic. One is a friend of mine who is from the western Massachusetts, like Westfield, Springfield area.
Okay.
And this guy I know a little bit less, but I've also played this Benjamin Hatch a few times. And I believe they're both friends with each other, too. It's just like Benception. It's pretty absurd. This is totally true, by the way. I'm not making this up. It's insane. There's 2 Benjamin Hatches that play competitive Magic in the area.
That's great.
But anyway, let's get to...
All right, so what I want to do
Houston.
before we get to Houston, we're going to just quick over. We got to do a little shout out here to our buddy, John Delano.
Oh, yeah.
We'll pull up here. Our teammate.
You mean Jund Delano?
John Delano. That's good. I like that. John Delano. That's going to stick, actually, I think. Now that I said that twice, it's definitely for now. All right, so Johnny D was running Jund. And yeah, I said Jund. What a psycho. But this is his list. He's been playing Jund forever. Mm-hmm. He goes back and forth between Jund Burn, and he plays like one other deck, I think. And this kind of reminds me of like Tom Ross's Infect deck in a sense of just the numbers are scattered. Yeah. And he's been playing the deck for a long time, just like Tom's played Infect. Mm-hmm. So he knows what he's doing. The numbers, I don't want to say are right or wrong because I haven't been playing Legacy, but it was expected this weekend, as it is always, for Eldrazi to be all over the place.
Well, yeah, this was the first... Oh, yeah, well, this was Modern, so sure.
Yeah, it's not Legacy.
It's Eldrazi... You can tell that the numbers are informed by the expected percentages of the format, like by how they assumed the format would break down, and you can see like this split, which is usually 4-2 in most metagames in favor of Inquisition to make sure that they don't get under your grindy mid-range deck, is back to 3-3 so that you can take things like Thought Not Seer and Reality Smasher, and then it also skews towards slower decks like Tron or like the power of something like Collected Company, which is a card that that is in small creature decks, but is actually like the most important card in the small creature decks.
Okay.
So you'd think that like playing Inquisition is good enough against the small creature decks, but your slow, your Tarmogoyfs, your mid-range creatures, your removal spells beat that half of the deck, and you need to make sure that they don't go up 2 on you by casting Company. So like it's still the most important to take things like Company against those decks. So that's why I think that we've gone to 3-3, and you saw like the main deck Kalidas. There's a main deck Dark Dwellers, which is just crazy.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this top 8, I think, is that it's a little diverse, and we don't have all Eldrazi. Like, yeah, there's 2, and then when you look in the top 16, there's there's 6 total. So yes, it's still more than we would like to see, I think, as just like players that enjoy the format.
Yeah.
And they're diverse.
Go to the 9th place deck. There's a friend of mine. I played blue-white Eldrazi, and so did this guy. It's Travis Purley. He's a New Jersey guy.
This seems to be the Eldrazi of choice. Either this one or the Bant seem to be the most popular ones at this point.
Look at that one right there.
Oh, Psycho.
Mirror Breaker.
I haven't seen this since Mono Blue Tron.
So I was going to play blue-red Eldrazi in Louisville, and I promise there's a point to this, guys. So, and I asked Andrew Brown, who Dan knows, so
yeah, good buddy of mine,
mutual friend in Dan, and I asked Andrew Brown, who had top 8 of the Pro Tour with the blue-red deck, what my sideboard should look like if I expect a bunch of the mirror for a big tournament, and he said to play Cyclonic Rift to beat the mirror, and I ended up last-minute audibling to blue-white, which I still think was the right choice, even though I didn't end up doing that well, but I think that Cyclonic Rift for the mirror can port to the other blue-based Eldrazi decks as well. I think it's great. I think it beats pretty much all of the things that people are trying to do to you in the mirror, which are like, at this point, they're very far-ranging. Like, we've got worship coming down in the mirror. We've got people trying to just gum the ground up and beat you with Endbringer. We've got I played against a Ghostly Prison over the weekend. Yeah, mirror opponent played a Ghostly Prison and an Oblivion Ring and then died to the Endbringer.
I do like Oblivion Ring, but Ghostly Prison seems a little stretched.
Oblivion Ring's a little weird because
if they do get rid of it,
because you have displacers. So like you have to pick what you're gonna like. They have to just go for the displacer or like go for something like worship, which is fine. But I would probably prefer Disenchant in that slot.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, but I think that Cyclonic Rift for the mirror is huge, and I'm fairly sure that I will have some number of Cyclonic Rift in my sideboard in Detroit. You want to look at the Bant deck real quick, because that one's all the rage these days.
Yeah, I saw LSV streaming this one. I think that it did top 8, and here we are.
Yep. Nate Sturm is a Baltimore guy.
So basically, this looks very similar to the white-blue list, except for one big thing. Mr. World Breaker.
One really big thing. Perfect 5 out of 7, if you will.
Yeah. So this guy is not only the World Breaker, but in a lot of people's eyes, the Mirror Breaker.
Yeah, I think that it's more... I mean, I think it's fine in the mirror. The most important thing in the mirror really is Drowner of Hope and Displacer.
Sure.
That's how you beat, like, every draw.
Okay.
I've won a lot of mirrors where I, like, go to 1, and then you just set that up, and nothing they do matters anymore.
But don't you think, though, like, looking at this list, that's kind of unreasonable considering you do have 7 destruction spells that just break that combo
Stuff
up?
happens. Yeah, sure. But I just think that, like, this... It is great in the mirror. It does hit their land and allow you to, you know, get on the board multiple things in a turn or do more things in a turn than they can. But, like, this also stops you from losing, like, the early rounds to the random decks, you know?
Okay.
Like, if you play against the guy who's like, oh, I'm going to play Painter's Servant and Ensnaring Bridge and just, like, beat every Eldrazi person I play against and lose to everybody else. Like, you got a main deck tutorable way to beat that. And the interesting thing is that this beats an Ensnaring Bridge as well, because you can get it back when they've milled you from Lantern Control. Like when they've milled you, you can now get back the World Breaker and World Breaker their bridge.
Which is important.
Because they have Academy Ruins.
Yeah, and this is important because, like, Disenchant, it gets rid of the bridge, but they have Academy Ruins. Exiling the bridge is very important.
Well, you just wait until you're going to attack for the win and then do it.
Sure, but sometimes they have multiple bridges is what I'm
saying.
Sure.
But yeah,
like, they play 4 in their deck.
Multiple bridges, you have to, like, kill your own guy multiple times, which gets kind of dicey.
Yeah.
But, like, generally, you can use this to beat a lot of things that the deck would struggle with. You can beat a main deck worship. You can still use it to beat all these things post-board, but the fact that you have an out to, like, some of the random stuff in game 1 is super important and really improves your percentages.
Okay.
And I really like the addition of the World Breaker. I think it's pretty close to free. It was added at the cost of... I mean, we got one... Oh, well, the other list I saw cut a Dismember for the World Breaker and then cut a Fountain for a Breeding Pool and played 4 pain lands that tap for green, 2 blue green, and 2 white green.
Okay.
Over the slot that was Caves of Koilos and Cavern of Souls.
Okay.
This one has
basic lands too.
Well, yeah, you still play the basic lands. You got to play the basic lands. There's a waste in my deck at the moment.
The
I'm not
blue-white
really sure.
deck didn't have it.
No, Brian, you want to go to the first place deck, or you want to go to Travis's deck?
Travis's deck. He didn't have it. Oh no, he did. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, everybody has it. I had a waste in my deck. I mean,
sense.
I don't know if that's right or
Just
not.
to get around Blood Moon.
The
like,
waste
kind of help.
Or like, well, yeah, the island and the plains help.
The wastes are fine, right? Because you need to get you want to have another way to search. Because you're playing against Path of Exile, you're playing against
Yeah. So I found that when you can usually get a basic land into play under Blood Moon, but you often have to pick which one. Okay. And as a result, it becomes complicated because do I want to pick white so that I can draw colorless creatures, path them, and have both colors? Or do I want to pick blue so I can draw my Sky Spawners and Drowners and then cast my waste creatures off of that?
Okay.
And now it makes it easier because you also have an extra an extra basic land that can help under Blood Moon. But if I did go with the Bant version, I would end up, cutting the waste again, obviously. But if I stayed with blue-white, I'd probably play a waste main and a Cyclonic Rift in the board.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure.
Are you playing blue-white this weekend?
I'm playing blue-white Eldrazi this weekend. I'm not positive there won't be green as well.
Okay. So you've been playing this deck for a while.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell the people about the deck that they need to be aware of, and what you think people are doing wrong with the deck, if anything?
Okay, well, the first thing that popped into my head contained a few expletives, so we're going to rephrase that.
Hey, now.
It was in my mind. I didn't say it out loud. The mirror is, and here's the clean version, extremely complicated and confusing.
Okay.
So, sometimes it's right to be aggressive and kill them before they can get their base underneath them. Sometimes it's right to play for the long game to make sure that you can save your removal spells to stop them from setting up Drown or Displacer. I've seen multiple games of the blue-white mirror where the opponent has 100, where both people have 100 some
skies,
tokens in play. And that means that it's pretty, the mirror is pretty complicated and can go a lot of different ways. You have to be really careful with what you spend your paths and dismembers on.
Okay.
And always mulligan to, in a large scale, not just the mirror, always mulligan to Ayavugan or Eldrazi Temple.
Okay.
And remember that Ayavugan often, backup copies of Ayavugan don't actually do anything. So if you don't have an Urborg in your deck, it can be awkward when you have multiple Ayavugans in your hand.
Sure.
But Ayavugan is far and away the best card in the deck as far as lands are concerned. It's just the best card. It's the card that makes the deck broken. You definitely keep a wide range of hands that have an Ayavugan in them.
Okay.
I also think that it's important to make sure that you don't die, and I did, to Collected Company in the Abzan Company deck.
Yep.
I was worried about a one-of Chord target, so my opponent had a Finks, a Chord, and a Company when I thought not of him. And I chose the Chord.
Should have took the Company.
And he companied into 2 perfects, which was Malira and Viserys Seer, and I just died on the spot.
Okay.
So generally you want to keep the Company decks off Company because it's a 2-for-1, whereas the other cards that search, like Chord, are just a good 1-for-1.
Gotcha.
So you have a lot of power in your creature base, so you need to prevent the inherent 2-for-1s in the other decks so that you can keep pace with them in the mid game.
Okay.
And I've found that against control decks, it's almost never right to play around something like Damnation.
Okay.
Unless you have a lot of information that they have it, or if you have something like Stubborn Denial where the cost to keep it up is only stunting your growth by 1 turn, then you can consider playing around it. But I've lost games where I should have just gone full out. And instead, I held back a couple creatures, and I just lost to spot removal spell, Snapcaster Mage, spot removal spell, which is a much easier thing for them to have than 1 random Damnation. So I think you generally are supposed to just play the deck like an aggro deck because it is an aggro deck.
Okay.
A cool trick is Path to Exile on your opponent's creature that's blocking your Reality Smasher. I killed someone
Trample damage. They don't get it.
Yeah, they were at 7. I think they were at 9 starting the turn. he had a Finks, a Spellskite, and I had Smasher and Drowner and some Drowner tokens. And I went, tap your Finks. He redirected to Spellskite, went to 7. I went, tap your Finks again. He redirected to Spellskite, went to 5. I went, okay, attack you with Reality Smasher. He blocked with Finks, and I pathed it. So if he redirects to Spellskite, he goes to 3.
Okay.
And then he takes 3 trample and dies. If he doesn't redirect, he takes 5 trample and dies.
Okay.
So he dies in like a game that I really could not have won any other way. But like, it's just an interesting thing to remember is how the trample works.
Okay.
And that you can Displacer to blow out double blocks. You can Displacer your own thing if they've tried to triple block and kill it or whatever. Okay. There's a lot of action with Displacer. Leaving up mana with Displacer is really good. A lot of the time, it's worth more than a card sometimes.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh, one more cool one about this deck. You can beat an Ensnaring Bridge, and this is if any of you guys want to play blue-white, it's important that you know that this is a thing that works. So I was talking with Harlan and Brad Carpenter in Louisville, and they all played blue-white Eldrazi as well. Brad lost playing for top 8 with the deck, and you can beat an Ensnaring Bridge, and this is how you do it. You use Displacer to blink your Drowner of Hope a whole bunch of times until you have a whole bunch of 1/1 tokens.
Okay.
And then you blink your Thought-Knot Seer on your turn, and you stack the triggers in reverse order so that you look at their hand before they draw a card.
Okay.
So you look at an empty hand, they draw a card, and then you attack for lethal with all your 1/1 tokens under their bridge.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool trick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never actually had to do that. But
that's time to set up, but that's definitely
that's a cool thing that you can do for sure.
A lot of people would just concede, I think.
Yeah.
Like game ones will just be like, oh, yeah,
and
I'll concede.
Sam Black is a Lantern guy, and Sam Black and I played in the Standard Classic in Louisville. And I said, oh, we figured out this cool way to beat Bridge. And he's like, yeah, you just Pithing Needle Displacer, and then that doesn't work anymore. And I'm like, yeah, this is why you've got like a bunch of Pro Tour top 8s or whatever. But sure, like if you also have a World Breaker in the Bant deck, like now they got a Pithing Needle Displacer, and they got to worry about the World Breaker that you're eventually going to mill. So like, there's a lot of ways that you can attack them. Which
it allows you to have versatility.
Yeah.
All right.
This deck has a lot of tricks to it.
So I've had enough Eldrazi talk.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. We're in the winter here, in the winter Drazi.
Eldrazi winter.
Whatever you want to call it. So there you go. There's Kevin's little piece on that. I know we're going to be seeing a lot of it this weekend.
I can't wait
Grand
for
Prix
Detroit.
Detroit.
It's going to be fun.
It's gonna be interesting. I haven't played enough against this deck. Hopefully, we can play a couple of games later, and I'll see if the deck that I'm playing a little crazier deck. But you guys will see it hopefully at the top tables this weekend. I won't divulge it yet because I'm not sure. I could still be playing Boggles, but we'll see. I have a different deck here, so we'll see. All right, so enough talk about Modern.
Let's go.
We're gonna go to Houston. Here we go. Top 8.
None of these people are named Dan Ward. What happened? What happened?
I know.
Everything went wrong.
So let's talk about the people that made it first, and then we can talk about the other 1,800 players.
Yeah, sure.
So the best in the world, Owen Turnwald. You know, he tweeted before the tournament, for those of you that didn't know, that GP Houston was canceled, and they're awarding Owen Turnwald $10,000 in the trophy. And he backed that up by actually taking it home.
Called shot?
Called shot.
I saw that tweet. I thought it was after he won.
No, this was before he won. He did it before the tournament.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Owen is great. Owen is like...
Great. Owen is the heel in Magic.
Just a bad guy in wrestling, exactly.
Yeah. Did you see his interview with talking about like the player of the year race? And they're talking about like Paul Vitor Demodorosa is like right behind him, and he's like, "Well, how do you feel about like him? You know, making moves during it while he making like an attempt to be like close to you?" And he looks at BDM and he goes, "Well, I think since I beat him in this tournament, and I'm still above him now that I gain more points." Like, it was great. I was like, "This is just what Magic needs."
Owen's great. Yeah. I've met him a few times, and he's a class act when he meets new people. He's not. He's not like the pro nightmare that I've heard some stories about years back, but he's cool.
Sure.
When I met him, he was real cool.
In my opinion, like you talk about anybody in Magic, they've got good and bad, no matter what.
Sure.
So Owen was playing the best player in the world, playing arguably the best deck, Rally.
Yes.
Rally wins again. There's your headline. Andrew Cunha, one of the best deck builders of all time.
Remember when we talked about his deck?
Yeah, his deck beat me.
No, his
GP
mock
San
deck.
Diego. He beat me. He gave Michael Majors the Sphinx tutelage.
Oh yeah, no.
technology.
I mean his Mox deck with the Manus Riders in the sideboard.
Oh,
A few weeks ago we
wow.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Dylan messaged it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, Cuneo top 80 the Mox with or top 32 the Mox with Manus Riders in the sideboard."
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, he probably would have won the tournament if he put them in the main deck." Did you see what he did? He put them in the main deck.
Yeah. Eddie, we'll get to your question in just a second, brother. I'm going to mention the mono blue and what you're asking about now about the dragons. So yeah, he put him in the main deck. Mark Jacobson, good friend of mine. That's my homie right
The
there.
GP teammate, right? In Detroit.
He was a GP teammate of mine past. He actually was one of my 3 losses in this tournament, playing the new green-white Hardened Scales, or
Sure.
as the deck was called for this weekend, James Hardened Scales, because we were in Houston.
Okay.
That was Ben Friedman came up with that. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was great. So that deck was good. Another person that played that deck, Chapman Sim,
Sure.
also playing the
Mint
Hardened
card guy,
Scales,
right? Yep.
mint card guy. He had a different take sideboard. He had the 3/4. I forget the card name. That is +1/+1 for the flyer. That's +1/+1 for each creature that has a counter, and he can put counters.
Oh, High Sentinels of Arasheen.
Yes, High Sentinels of Arshan.
Yes.
He played that. Brock Mosley was playing Mardu Green. Mm-hmm. Cody, I want to talk about Cody here for a quick second. Cody Lingleback. He looks like, I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. I'm sorry about that. He just looks like some guy that just, from the area
Yeah.
that just like made it in there somehow.
Got his local card store T-shirt on.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
super happy to be there.
That's not the case.
Yes.
This is his second GP top 8 in a
in a
row.
row. Yeah.
Cody is a friend of a friend.
Sure.
So going into this tournament, a lot of people, and especially the viewers, I've been, streaming Dragons, Grixis Dragons, different versions of Dragons. I sent a copy of my list through my buddy Ed Wynn to Henry Friedman. He needed a deck for RPTQ. He's been testing in a while.
Yep.
He then gave the list to a couple other people, Cody being one of them,
Yep.
for this tournament, and they tweaked it a little bit, putting in Ghost Fireblade. So they called it, Michael Majors wrote the article about the deck, Ghost Fire Dragons. And so I just wanted to really highlight the fact that this is someone that has done it now 2 weekends in a row, or 2 GPs in a row, with different variations of a similar deck, but has, sculpted his way through a large field twice and really done well. So props to you, Henry Friedman, for coming up with the tech with a Ghost Fire Blade, and Cody's proving that it worked.
He's top 8 2 different large Grand Prix with a unique take on a strategy and standard that requires a similar skill set, and it's just shown that it was Mardu
Tokens
aggro
with
Colligan.
Colligan, and then this
And then
version
it's
was Grixis
this deck,
Dragons
which is
with
Grixis
Ghost Fire.
Dragons with Ghost Fireblade, and he didn't have Jaces like you did, right? He was
No, I was controlling.
he was like the deck we played in the testing video,
Yeah,
but he had Ghost Fireblade.
exactly. He cut
And
like
Sky
murderous
Spawner?
cuts. He had Spawner too.
That's interesting. I like that. I mean, yeah. Congrats to him. Keep crushing it, man.
John Brock Parker.
I didn't know his first name was John. I always knew him as Brock.
Brock, yeah, I think he goes by Brock. I've seen him the first couple times. He teams up with a couple of the big names as far as for Team
He's,
GPs. Efro's friend, good
Grand
friend,
Prix
right?
champion.
Yeah.
Good friend of Huey, Efro, all those guys. Won GP Pittsburgh a few years back.
Okay, so not too shabby.
Great
He-
limited player for sure.
Yeah, that's
Old
what I've
school
heard
pro.
about him. Old school pro, good limited player, or great limited player, I should say. He was also playing Rally. So we had 2 rallies in here. And last but not least, Admir Radmard. This is the gentleman that I played in the winning in game in round 15.
Yep.
Those of you that haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was they only showed a little bit of the game 3. They showed the second half of it.
Let's look at his deck list because
I definitely will. I just want to say, this is Admir. I was talking to him before our match. This was his first time playing for a winning in. This was his first pro tour he's going to be going. I
awesome.
talked to him. I was like, hey, is this important to you? He goes, Dan, it's not like super important to me. I just want to say once in my lifetime that I played in a pro tour.
Yeah.
So for me, losing the game, it was very tough for me because the winning in game basically would have locked me silver and 3 invites. So instead now I'm fighting for silver. I'm 1 point away. I need to get 2 points this weekend or in the next couple. But it was very, like I said, it was very tough for me to lose in this fashion. I was so far ahead in the match. Go back and watch it. But for me to lose to this guy, I was kind of happy because for one, it meant a lot to him. And for 2, as we're going to look at his list right now, He had Savage Knuckleblade in it.
Oh, I was excited because he had Mana Strider.
Oh, you know what? This reminds, and I told him too, which is crazy. This reminds me of the deck I played at Pro Tour Brussels.
It's the last one.
Last one. Because I was one of the first people playing Collected Company that had Mana Strider, like the Temurai, but that had Knuckleblade, Rabblemaster. So if you want to go into it, I saw it firsthand.
So I think, and because you saw it firsthand, you can bounce this off of me a little bit, but I'm going to give my, like, off the top of the head evaluation, because I did watch a deck very similar to this play in the top 8 of the Classic, and I liked it a lot to the extent that I'm probably going to actually throw this together and see how it is. I like the creatures, so I think that the huge shift that we've noticed with Oath of the Gatewatch is Reflector Mage.
Okay.
I think Reflector Mage has literally changed everything about Collected Company decks. Collected Company decks used to be decks that beat other creature decks because Collected Company was a powerful 2-for-1 and you had creatures with enter the battlefield effects. You clog the ground. You could beat some decks with spot removal that was slow and mana intensive because you had all these 2-for-1s built in. Now, Collected Company is a tempo deck and that deck we just described.
Yeah.
It can do huge tempo swings when you hit when you're losing a race and you hit Reflector Mage and Bounding Krasis. You're not losing the race anymore. You now have 5 additional power in play, and you time walk to your opponent. You can hit a Jace and a Reflector Mage, and then untap and do it again. You have Mana Strider to kill Planeswalkers. You can beat like Gideon Siege Rhino in combat without even that much trouble. Like you just like tap one thing, bounce the other thing, and then untap and play a Mana Strider or a hasty Knuckleblade. You can give a lot of pressure to the things that traditionally beat up on creature decks.
Sure.
And like the thing about this deck is it's the one that gets the most power out of its Collected Companies because decks like Rally have, Sidisi's Faithful, they have the Cutthroats, they have the Visionaries, and these are all great cards to hit off Collected Company, of course. But don't get me wrong, but these cards cost, 1 and 2 mana. This deck has an almost scary density of 3 mana spells to the degree that your Collected Companies are almost always going to be 6 mana worth of Magic cards.
Yeah.
So, like, because of that, you're getting the most mana efficiency. You're getting 2 3 mana effects out of 4 mana. So you're gaining 2 mana on your opponent every time you cast Collected Company, and then you're gaining you're gaining a huge advantage there when you can also kill a Planeswalker, or you can eliminate something in combat, or you can Jason do it again. Like you can even see that this deck is like bent on this plan to the degree that it plays 2 Stratus Dancers just for curve considerations. Like, sure, you can play the Stratus Dancer, on turn 5 and flip it up and it's good against Rally. And that's great, and that's probably why it's the best thing for the job. But it's also a completely defensible 2 mana.
Yeah, 2/1
flyer.
Vaporkin
that can block is great.
Yeah.
It's exactly what this deck needs, because if they can live into the point where they can start to do things like cast Collected Company, or even to the point where they can play, 2 3s in one turn, like in the turn 5-6 area, then you're looking great.
Highlighting on the fact that you brought up the curve consideration,
Sure.
I also like the fact that there's a number of other plays you can do with it.
Yeah.
You can play it turn 2 on the play, and then be able to Dramoka's Command on turn 3 off your opponent's Jace.
Sure.
This deck also runs, which is something we have not seen in the Bant companies, 2 copies of Ojutai's Command.
Oh, no, it's
and it
standard
allows
in
you to
Bank
have... Oh, they're playing it 2
Yeah,
copies?
Andy Ferguson had 2 when he top-8'd in Columbus. It's always been 25 creatures, 25 lands, 4 commands, 2 blue-white commands, and 4 companies.
Okay.
Is always the blue-white.
I've seen some different lists. That's why I'm saying. I've seen some that don't have Ojutai's. But I think because of having the Stratus Dancers, now you have 10 copies of cards you can hit for. It's realistic to me.
Yep.
Like I said, playing against Amir, this was actually a very good matchup for me because my deck, Grixis Dragons, which Jace and Dig, I was basically playing a slower controlling version.
Yep.
Was really good because I could pick stuff off. However, in our game 3, I was faced by him drawing 3 cards in a row that were very powerful. He drew a Collected Company, which I had removal spells for his creatures. And then he drew Reflector Mage, which you just talked about.
Yes.
Stole the tempo from the game by bouncing my Kolgan. And I happened to have another Kolgan in my hand, so it was clunky.
It's super time war.
And so he drew Collected Company, Reflector Mage, and then ripped another Collected Company, where my draws were land. Not being, salty here, but it just showed the power of Reflector Mage, because with me having complete control of the board with Colgan, the only out that was in his deck to kill Colgan or to get rid of Colgan was Reflector Mage, and I have already transgressed that game one and killed a different one.
Well, it's Reflector Mage off of Collected Company at instant speed, right?
No, he played it as played it on his turn. I couldn't play it next turn.
You cast your Colgan.
Yeah,
like
because because the first. Okay, so what happened was the first Reflector Mage was out.
Sure.
And he had no cards in hand, so I played it.
To then he block or whatever?
Yeah. No, I just played it.
Yeah.
Because why would I just want to play it?
There's no reason to, right? His life total's high or whatever?
Yeah, he was at 16.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so I played it. He draws Disdainful Stroke, which I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
I untap and transgress him. Transgress the mind. Find out he has Disdainful Stroke. Then attack him. I also kill. I think I foul-tongued his creature away. Anyway, I won't get into the whole game. Like I said, if you guys want to watch it, it was very intense. But what I'm saying is the deck's power level coming off of Collected Company is really insane. And the thing that this deck has going for it more than the other ones is, like Kevin said, you're gaining so much more advantage because of having Savage, Knuckleblade, and Manus Rider, of having the 3 mana spells. So essentially, instead of cheating that mana, you're cheating it by even more now.
Yeah, you could argue that the 3 mana cycle of Khan's creatures is already super push, and that the opportunity cost of playing those cards was that they cost 1 mana of each color, 3 colored mana. So like, because of that, it's supposed to be a prohibitive. The cost of playing them was supposed to be prohibitive to the point that you can't play other 3 mana creatures in the same deck. Like Anaffense of the Foremost is really good. And like, if you could play Anaffense of the Foremost and Manus Rider in your deck, that'd probably be a really powerful 3-drop slot.
Oh yeah.
But you can't do that because the mana would have to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, as a result, I think that's why the power level of Manus Rider, Savage Knuckleblade, Anaffenza. What are the other ones? I guess Butcher of the Horde is the honorary third one.
Butcher of the Horde?
There's like a cycle.
Mana.
I know. But
you mean of the 3 color
it's like
ones.
A cycle.
Siege Rhino?
Siege Rhino is Anaffense is the...
Okay.
Oh, no, Anaffense is the legend. Siege Rhino is the other one.
Yeah.
It's like Manus Rider, Savage Knuckleblade, Siege Rhino, Butcher of the Horde, and what is...
The Sidisi one. There's Sirach.
Sidisi...
Is there Sirach? No, it's Knuckleblade.
Yeah, I know Sidisi is the legend. Sidisi is the Anaffenza slot.
Oh, okay.
It's Sidisi, Narset, Anaffenza,
What's the
Sirach,
Esper one? Is there an Esper one? No.
Sirach, and the Mardu one is Zergo 7-2, the one that Arielax threw onto the table when he won the match in the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Like slammed it down, the 7-2 guy.
Yeah. The Zergo Helm Smasher.
Yes, that guy.
Okay. Angus, well, first of all, I appreciate being your favorite player. I'll do my best this weekend to actually get to the top 8. Angus, yes, there was a turn. So, not to go into that entire match and make that, this about that. But there was a turn that I could have activated the Fumarole, but I was playing around. At this point, I had complete control of the game, I felt. And barring him drawing the runners, which actually ended up happening, and me drawing air, which I did. I drew 3 lands in a row before the dig through time on my last turn. I was playing around him because my life total was at 7, top decking a Collected Company. So then I would die to Knuckleblade / Manus Rider, which he did in game 1, which was not on camera. And so I wanted to make sure that all my outs were, covered. Was it a little conservative? Yes, maybe I should have forced him to do it. Hindsight's 20/20. But I felt like in the moment, it's not that I forgot to attack with Wandering Fumarole. I felt like this was the correct line of play. And my cards are way better. So I felt like I was going to be in a better
Did he rip Company
position.
the turn you didn't attack with Fumarole?
He ripped Company
the next
turn.
Okay, so if you would attack with Fumarole, you could have won?
Yes.
Okay, like the other thing is that like it's kind of a net zero because it's just basically a push. But if like Dan activates Fumarole and attacks with Colligan and Fumarole, Abounding Krasis is bad for Dan because he
he can
taps
tap
Colligan and then the land can't really attack. I mean,
exactly.
The land can trade with the Krasis, which is like not great. But
but no, then I'm tapped out. The Krasis taps my dragon, and then if he draws Knuckleblade, I'm dead.
Yeah, he just
Coco, I'm probably dead. Or Manus Rider, I'm down to 1.
Exactly. Like I don't know that I like attacking there. I think there's a lot of value as a blocker.
It was just brought up as a thing that like people were like, I would have won if I did it. And like I said, I think I made the correct play.
Yeah.
And trust me, everyone out there, I've went over this many times in the last 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, you had a 3-hour flight home or whatever.
Yeah,
It probably played on loop in your head.
I actually was thinking about it last night before I went to bed.
Oh, staring at the ceiling?
Yeah, I rewatched the match. I've rewatched it a couple times, and I just want to make sure, not that I'm tilting myself or putting myself like in a position to just keep remembering it, but I want to know that, hey, if I made a mistake, let's move forward. All right, enough talk about the deck. Check it out on Twitch. Or enough talk about that match. Check it out on Twitch. Tell me what you think. You can send me an email and let me know if I played bad or if you think I did the right thing. I'd like to know.
And, one thing quick. If you guys, in the future, we really appreciate all the feedback with regards to, you got your favorite players and that you like watching us and that stuff. If, like we just talked about a couple turns pretty in depth, like if in the future anybody would be interested in maybe putting your a GP match, like you're winning it up on the camera and you and I go over it while we're on the stream.
Yeah.
That's something we could do in the future if somebody wants something like that,
Yeah, definitely. We may be able to.
That's an interesting idea.
Thanks, I appreciate that, Angus Shuffle. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Maybe next week, actually, we'll do that. Maybe I'll pull the match up and we can dissect it. We'll see how this weekend goes. Hopefully, both of us will have some other matches.
Some other camera matches, yeah.
Lastly, before I leave off with Amir's deck, I want to talk about his sideboard. So I saw in Game 2, he brought it against me Void Draft.
Oh, he did bring it in.
He brought it in, but he played it as a vanilla. He played it as a vanilla.
Get in there.
He just he had no play on turn 2 or turn 2 he played Jace. I killed it. Turn 3 he passed, and to turn just played it. And it was weird because I have not seen it, but I think it's cool with the company deck. The two cards I want to talk about though are one, Chandra Flamecaller.
It's fine. I like it.
The mana in this deck is so crazy that why not, I guess?
Oh, mana's fine. I think the mana's great in this deck.
I don't agree, but we won't get into that. But Chandra Flamecaller to me is a little out there just because his deck is doing something very well, and now you're putting something in there that's a little clunky, and you're already close on creatures since it's only 25, which is enough. But I mean, I like 20. I like 20, 5 is the minimum for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's tough. And Dragon Master Outcast.
I think
that
that's
is
great.
Awesome. To be honest, I wouldn't even been mad if instead of the 2 turns prior to him top decking, if he would have just played that.
Two Dragon Master Outcast in a row.
Yeah, I would have probably. Well, I don't know if I would have lost because he would have had a chump block the first one with Colgan, and it would have been different. But I would not have been ready for it.
Yeah.
He probably didn't bring it in versus me just because he knows how much removal I have. So it maybe not make sense because it doesn't do enough in the early game. He needs to put me on the back foot because once I accumulate enough cards in my hand, the cards that really blew him out, in Game 2, I blew him out with Radiant Flames. And even in Game 3, he went turn 2 Jace, turn 3 Morph, and I Radiant Flames him. You can't afford to be blown out with that kind of a card.
Well, yeah, I think that, it's really interesting. That dynamic is super interesting to me because Dromoka's Command is a card that doesn't look like it actually has much utility in this deck against a deck that is essentially a control deck that wins the game with big dragons. Because, the opportunity cost you're leaving up to try to Dromoka's Command something is just too much. You're not going to be able to Dromoka's Command Thunderbreak Region efficiently.
Yeah.
You're either going to 2-for-1 yourself, and, you probably can never Dromoka's Command Colligan unless, you have a Knuckleblade out already. But it just seems really difficult to get that to happen.
Yeah.
So, the first thing you're going to do when you consult your sideboard is you're probably going to go down on maybe... You see, it's hard because flash threats are so good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you'd go down on Bounding Crisis, but, I don't even know if you would.
Bounding Crisis seems really good versus me because it stops Colgan.
But you got to sideboard something out, right?
Yeah. I would think you cut maybe the Ojutai's commands are good.
No, Ojutai's commands are good.
I don't know, though. I have 4 transgresses. I'm going to transgress before I do that.
Yeah, but this deck is filled with 3-drops. You're going to transgress something, I
don't know.
They have to... I don't think
I'd like to know what he sideboarded out because I thought I don't want to say next leveled. I don't like using that term within regard to what I'm about to say.
I like using that term when it's
sure. So I next leveled opponents. I next leveled I think 3 or 4 opponents in this tournament by sideboarding out my Jaces. I actually, in round 9, against a Mardu deck, I transgressed him on turn 2 and saw that he kept in all his Fiery Impulses and all the Draconic Roars, and I didn't have Jace, so he had no targets. He had to use, 2 of them to kill a dragon, which I was fine with. Sure. And I did it in this matchup as well, because with him being on the play game 3, I did not want to have him play a creature, and then even if it's, whatever creature, it's not good versus Reflector Mage, and it's not good versus Dromoka's Command.
Yeah, you don't even want Jaces in your deck in that matchup.
No, definitely not.
It's like if his best draws involve Reflector Mage on the play after you've played a Jace, and if you take that option out of his deck, it's more likely that he's going to pass or play some other creature on turn 3 into your 2 untapped mana, which makes your Draconic Roar even better.
Yeah.
So it's the same strategy. I've been tinkering around with the Jeskai Dragons deck lately, and my buddy top 4'd the classic with the deck, and he fell to Bant Company in the top 4.
Okay.
And I think that he made some interesting decisions in game, and as a result, I noticed that dynamic where you can take them off of their turn 3 a lot of the time by not playing your 2-drop.
Okay.
So 2-drops, I used to worry like when we had the Martin Mueller's Jeskai Dragons deck up a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I don't like the low density of 2-drops and the high density of charms and stuff like that. But I actually like that stuff because the more that I thought about it, because when you don't play a creature, it makes their best draws because Reflector Mage is good because you get to tempo off their 2-drop and get on the board. And that's super important because you really don't want to kill Reflector Mage with a removal spell. So what happens is that it just lives and hits you for 2, and then something else comes out and hits you.
It's
now
the
they threaten to hit you
incremental
for
damage.
more, and maybe leave up command to counter your removal spell. So now you can't even kill something.
Yeah,
So,
and I saw it in game 2 versus Amir too, which is one of the reasons why it led me to do it, is I transgressed him on turn 2, and his hand was 2 Disdainful Strokes and 3 Reflector Mages.
Yeah.
And so he just got rid of, this is why he played the Void Grafter.
Yeah.
Because he just had a hands full of that, and he's probably thinking, hey, well, he's got Jace in his deck.
Yeah.
It's fine versus Thunderbreak. It's not great, but it
Yeah.
still bounces and steals tempo. So
If you have information, you can mitigate Reflector Mage
Yeah.
pretty seriously. But I think that if he boarded in the Disdainful Strokes, some number of Dispels, the Outcast, the Void Grafters, I kind of like everything against you. I even put the Chandra in. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards? So what do you cut? You probably cut but that's the thing, you want to cut the Dromogus commands, but you can't cut the Dromogus commands because you just get crushed by Radiant Flames.
yeah, he definitely brought the Disdainful Strokes in and the Void Grafters. I think he took the Void Grafters out game 2. Game 3, because I saw it game 2, I didn't see it game 3. We got pretty deep. I saw 2 Disdainful Strokes. I don't think he brought the Dispels in, which I wasn't sure because he played my friend Brian McAfee the round before
Yes,
this.
sure.
And they played an insane game, so I knew he had Stratus Dancer main, and I knew some of the things about his list, which was good. But I didn't think he would bring Dispel in versus me. I knew he had it, but I didn't think he would bring it in.
I think he brings it in for the only reason that you need to force your companies through Dispels and Disdainful
but like you
Strokes.
said, this deck doesn't have enough cards to take out. The only cards that are manageable to take out are the commands and all the commands. You can't cut a different card versus my deck.
When you're boarding in creatures, you just take out creatures.
Sure.
And when you're boarding in spells, you just take out
all
spells.
of his creatures are really good versus me. There's not one creature that I saw all the Reflector Mages game 3, he didn't take those out. I saw all the Bounding Krasis game 3, he didn't take those out. He didn't take Stratus Dancer out. He didn't take Jace because I saw he didn't take Knuckles Manus. He didn't take any of those out.
Yeah, I don't know how to sideboard with this deck.
Maybe he even trimmed a company, which would be sick because he played 3 in that game.
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but it may be because if you're bringing in Disdainful Strokes...
Cut a land on the draw?
He's on the play.
Oh, well, I mean, in the game that he's on, he's on the draw in game 2 then, right?
Yeah.
Or
He decided differently, I think. Anyway. All right, well, so we want to highlight this deck because it was something that was definitely new. At least new to a lot of people that didn't, know what was going on with Collected Company. And you brought up a good point of how the red splash, you think the mana's free. We'll let time decide that. I'm sure a lot of people are seeing this and going, hey, I want to use my Manus Riders and Knuckle Blades before it's too late.
yeah, it's
and
Swan Song of Manus Rider. SCG Indy is the last tournament with cons legal. Definitely going to go. And entertaining this deck for sure.
So, Eddie, I want to answer your question real quick before about Mono Blue. I think Mono Blue Eldrazi is good. Neil Oliver's been streaming it a lot. However, I will say this. Neil Oliver did not play Blue Eldrazi at this tournament. He played, in fact, the Green-White Hardened Scales deck, which most of East-West Bowl and a lot of the Cali guys, a lot of the Northeast guys were playing as well. They thought that deck was really primed for the position. A lot of Brazilians were playing it as well. So there's just a lot of people that were playing that deck. I think it is good. I don't know how great it is. As far as Dragons go, I think Dragons is very good right now still. And there's a lot of different variations you can go with it, seeing by looking at the top 8.
Yeah.
So the top 8, Cody was in there. In the top 16, there was another Red Black Dragons, and then I finished 20th, which the difference between 10th and I think like 26th, I think, was all the same record.
At 12-3, you were 20th?
20th.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my breakers were really bad somehow because
1,800 people, right?
Well, 1,800 people, and I lost to 2 people in the top 8. So, like, it's weird that my breakers are that bad.
That's you really crushed it this weekend. That's crazy, man. It's just like
that.
the perfect like confluence of things that happen to like get you to miss. Do you suggest to beat Eldrazi or join them at Detroit? If beating them is by playing Affinity, then you're fine. If beating them is by playing a green mid-range deck like Collected Company or even Abzan, I think is defensible. Maybe a blue-red Blood Moon deck. Those are like a couple ways that are okay to try to beat them. But if you don't really know what's going on, just just join them.
I'd say join them, but I'd also say, user beware. Because if you join them and you haven't played the deck a lot at all, the mirror matches are going to be very tough, especially if you're playing the blue-white.
You need to get your reps in. You cannot just pick up this deck cold. If you're going to pick up a deck cold and play it, I think...
Storm.
No, I think if you're going to pick up an Eldrazi deck cold and play it, I think red-blue or colorless is better than the blue-white, because the blue-white definitely has like a higher floor for where you can operate it at a correct level and a much higher ceiling with all the interactions with Displacer and all that stuff.
All right, well, that's going to kind of do it here for this week. We're going to go over a couple things. Like I said, always at BigWar28 for me on Twitter and KerwinsGameStore.com. Let us know how we're doing, and we'll have some stuff for next week. We'll have our GPT GP Detroit, if I can talk here. We'll have our rundown on what happened and how we did. And we will go over that match. If we have another match to go over, maybe we'll do that. It'll be a quick, maybe 5-minute segment. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, I'm just going to let everyone know if you want to show...
I was more considering doing it like an hour thing, like breaking down like every play on every turn, like when we played the testing video or whatever.
Yeah, we can talk about this later.
For sure.
So if you want to let everybody know what shirt you're wearing, because I don't know if you've seen this. This is the new sweet Gamers Helping Gamers shirt. For those of you that don't know about GHG, I'm going to go ahead and
ridiculously awkward position.
I'm gonna paste it right in here for you guys. This is Gamers Helping Gamers. It's a charity that is for all of us, basically. It's Gamers Helping Gamers. So we're trying to raise money so that people can go to college. And with that, I'll show everyone. This is our tournament. It's going to be happening on April 30th.
Right here, right. Yep.
Let's go to events, and right on our page, you can go right to the calendar, and bang. So this is going to be happening right here. It's a 2K with all the money going to the top 8. $1,000. I said $1,000 for first place. It's a standard tournament. All of the prize support is put on by the owner, Stephen Kerwin, or Kerwin's Enterprises. And the donations we'll be taking, the entry fee is $35. 100% of that goes directly to the charity to help the cause. In addition to that, we're going to be having John Finkel here. He's going to be slinging some spells. We're going to be doing some GHG charity drafts. We're going to have baskets to win with all kinds of crazy goods. I believe the draft's going to be a chaos draft too, so it's going to be pretty fun.
Yes, so this is a great event. I've played in this tournament, I believe, every year that has happened. Think won it one year. It was great. But anyway, that's not really the point. But this charity,
humble brags, Kevin Jones,
is a New York-based charity. It's run by Timothy McKenna, who is used to play a lot of Magic, used to play a lot of sealed PDQs in the New York area. Real solid player, and he's a good friend of John Finkel's, who also is part of this charity. The charity is John Finkel and Timothy McKenna from New York City. They do scholarship money for kids who are in games. Kids who play games, they give the opportunity for kids to play games, and for kids who are successful in games like Magic to have the money to go to school and to leverage their intellectual capacity and to leverage their skill set in a way to make a positive influence in the world. And I really, truly think that it's a great thing, because the way the world is, it's starting to be such that it's awesome for people to have a way to leverage unconventional talents.
Okay.
And I think that gaming is one of those type of things where, like, originally it's like, oh, if you work for Wizards, like, that's the best thing to do when you're good at Magic or whatever, that's the end goal. But like now there's like this is affording people more opportunities who have this skill set, which is generally an unconventional skill set in the real world at large.
Sure.
So it's great to give people a leg up when they're good at something unusual and have a support system for these kids to really make something out of their talent.
Sure.
So that's awesome.
So we'll be having the shirts. Come see us at the booth if you're going to be able to make it to GP Detroit. We're going to be rocking the shirts this weekend. With that being said, today is the last day. If you can get your orders in for the in-store pickup, just choose the option GP Detroit. We'll have our stuff there. Mm-hmm. If it's in, 12:46 Eastern time right now. Hopefully the next couple hours, if you can get it in. Past probably 5 or 6 o'clock, we're not going to be able to take those. We'll have a bunch of stuff with us. We're bringing a ton with us to Detroit. So with that, let me take you to our main page here. To let you know we are doing pre-orders for Shadows. We have it right on here. Click right on the link, and it'll send you right to our page. And as always, under the featured videos, you can look at our weekly Ward episodes. So if you came in halfway through today, you can get on there and pop through. It'll be up probably before this weekend, so around Friday, Saturday-ish, you'll be able to click on it and then rewatch the whole thing. And last but not least, always our articles are up here. Someone alluded to it in the stream earlier in the chat on your interview with Dylan Donegan. So those of you that are Legacy players and want to definitely know a little bit more about Delver.
I did an awesome article with Dylan, and it was awesome because he's awesome, not because I'm an awesome writer. I'm not, I'm fine, but Dylan was great. His answers were awesome. We had a good time doing it. Thanks to him again for doing that, and hopefully you guys check it out if you have any desire to read about Grixis Delver or just the way that good players think about tempo decks and stuff like that.
Okay, so just lastly here, we got one question. We got Eldrazi on my left, and I am playing one of two decks. I am playing Boggles, or I am playing a version of Grizzle Shoal.
Yep, I'll be playing Blue, White, or Bant Eldrazi, and Dan will be playing something that's modern legal that comes from his terrible, twisted, beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy, whatever that's his brain.
I'll tell you what, I may not win this weekend, but going into last weekend with Grixis Dragons, the version that I had, which, I guess I'll give a shout out to Reed Duke. He really brought a different aspect to the deck, and I talked to him about it. He put an article out, and I switched a couple things around, and I really kind of he helped out a little bit with the creation of my version. And I had fun playing.
Yeah.
A lot of fun playing the deck. And I feel like if I play the deck that isn't Boggles, I'm going to be able to have a lot of fun as well. And so that's why I think I'm going to play this weekend.
Surprise. I play a deck that isn't Boggles, and I think I'll have a good time.
I have good time playing Boggles, don't get me wrong. But I want to play something different.
Whatever Omar said got deleted.
Yeah, Omar. Come on, buddy.
Omar keeps getting deleted all the way up the chat.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us here at episode 11.
I think we're going to wrap it. I'm going to stand up one more time so they can see the awesome shirt.
You got it.
If you guys see this, if you guys are at GP Detroit and you see the shirt, come talk to us, come hang out, come to our booth.
Let's get it on Twitter.
We really appreciate the support, obviously. So we're going to have a ton of stuff, some cool cards, foils, everything like that at the booth. And these guys will be working hard. I'll be playing. Dan will also be playing.
I'll be playing and working hard. So I'll work hard on Friday, and then I'll be playing the rest of the weekend.
Yep. But again, thanks again, and we'll see you guys, hopefully see some of you guys this weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
From here from Catskill, New York, and that's how it was on March 2nd, 2016.
Yep.
We'll see you next week, guys.